welcome back, Beyonders, to Tabletop and Beyond. I am your host, Justin, here with co-hosts Jason and Dan. Welcome to the show, boys.
Good evening.
And of course, we have our illustrious guest here with us tonight, Miss Darcy Bono from Darcy Bono fame. We're so happy to have you, one of our favorite artists, here on the show with us today.
Thank you.
She has a killer Insta. I've been following your Insta since you were on the show last time.
Oh, wow.
So
nice. Thank you.
I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
How long ago was last time?
2 years?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, I think.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID. That makes sense, yeah.
It's been a while.
We're glad you came back.
Thank you. No, thank you for asking me back.
Right, exactly. And a lot has changed, and we're excited to talk about all the things that have happened with you. But we knew when we saw you in person at Adepticon that we had to get you back on the show because it was awesome playing Warcry with you and just catching up there. So I think we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so yeah, we're excited. But of course, as we get started, we need to get to our Geek Week. So Dan, why don't you kick us off with your Geek Week, sir?
I had an amazingly geeky RPG session. I've been GMing Star Wars RPG since 1989 over 3 different systems. And I think I exceeded my own expectations on a good session. So I decided we were going to do a Sabacc-based game, a casino game. And essentially the players, there's going to be 3 different nights and 3 different tournaments. They're making their way up the tournament to essentially get control of Cloud City, basically. And so I had to teach all the guys how to play Sabacc. So I got the cards from Galaxy's Edge, and I got some downloadable rules, and I got poker chips, and I created a dozen different gamblers that they could be dealing with. Thank you, ChatGPT. You're great at building character backstories. And thanks, Microsoft Bing, for some images. Hey, I'm telling you what, for RPG, make it easy. Don't make it hard on yourself. So we had lots of different gamblers. And so I have a whiteboard up by in my game room. It's magnetic. So we had all the different gamblers that they were sitting around the table with and what cards they had, And so if the guy who'd hacked into the cameras was looking at one person's hand, I would flip the cards around and holding everything up with magnets. And so they got to try to bluff specific gamblers and try to knock specific guys out. And let's just say we had a 6-hour RPG session. We started, I'm not joking. So it was really fun. So do something different. If you're RPGing and you're doing something bored, introduce some wild elements to it. And we had one guy who had to leave at 11:30 an hour before everybody else did. He's like, I really don't want to go. I have to get up in the morning. We're like, sorry, get out. But we've got 2 more sequels. We're going to do it 2 more times to make it more interesting. So that was on Saturday. We had a blast. So that was the geekiest thing I've done in a long, long time. It was really geeky.
That's pretty geeky.
Yeah.
That's pretty geeky, but it sounds amazing.
I even bought another set of Sabacc cards on Etsy because I don't like the ones I got from Disney. So there's another. Etsy's bringing me a better set. So yeah. Anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Darcy, how was your Geek Week?
Well, mine is going to kick off tomorrow because I don't even know if this counts as geeky, just so much as I don't know, dorky. Disney has been showing the quote classics because apparently the 90s and late 80s are now classics. Yay.
Right.
And so I was born in 89. One of the first movies I ever saw, one of the only things we had on VHS was Beauty and the Beast, the original animated one. I'm effing obsessed with that movie. It's easily my top 3 favorite movies, as are 2 of my other favorite movies are Stockholm Syndrome themed. So it's Phantom of the Opera, Beauty and the Beast, and V for Vendetta. So that's my icebreaker bit. But I'm going to go see Beauty and the Beast tomorrow in theaters for the first time, even though I grew up watching it on VHS. So wow. I'm going by myself while my son's in school.
Nice.
Wow, there you go.
And they serve alcohol there too. So I'm gonna have a glass of wine and a big ass thing of popcorn as a 33-year-old woman watching Beauty and the Beast.
I think they know their target demographic for this.
Yeah.
You're it.
Yeah, that really is it. That and like maybe like a bachelorette party, like the beginning of one. Like start with the alcohol movie theater, and then they hit the bars after they see their classic Disney fun.
Yeah, I wonder if are they doing the original theatrical release or are they doing the extended cut original?
What is the extended cut?
There's an additional song that was cut from the original movie for time. It's like a 3 to 5 minute song where everyone's like out in the courtyard, like singing and dancing and stuff.
Oh, is it the Human Again song? I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because they put it on the DVD release.
The books or the garment closet
wardrobe.
The wardrobe that has like a lot more scenes in that.
I'll let you know. I totally forgot about that. I'm glad you told me. I'd have been like heresy, and then it actually had been in the original.
Yeah, interesting. Anyway. That was one of my favorite that was one of my favorite Disney ones growing up too. I had this thing for Belle, right? And
I mean, I had a thing for the beast. Did you see the arms on that dude?
Yeah, right.
He throws a wolf. So
interesting. My wife is a brunette as well, so it kind of worked out.
Hey, have a type. He has a type.
Oh shit! That woman looks like Belle.
Happily married.
Happily married.
6 kids.
Gotta fill the castle.
That's right. The castle. The West Ring, though, that's off limits. Was it the West Ring? Is that the one that had the rose?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's forbidden.
Yeah.
Forbidden.
All right, that's my shtick.
Good. That does sound pretty geeky, and I wish you all the joy and happiness that will come from your adventure tomorrow for sure.
Cool, thanks.
Jason, how was your Geek Week, buddy? I think I know how it was.
Yes, I bet you do. I spent a lot of time painting. I'm trying to share my screen, but I think it's going to share my whole screen here. Let me see. Window. I can share window. That's right. All right, man. So can you guys? Oh, you gotta, Justin. You gotta let it in. Yeah. Oh my gosh, man. So many lashings on this terrain.
Oh yes.
And that's just one piece. Right? Oh my gosh. I mean, I spent the whole night, Sunday night, just painting lashings on this stuff. Yep. But I like. I don't know. It's gonna load or not here. There we go. I do like the ultimate scheme that I have going for this thing. I don't know why that little pop-up is showing up there. Apologize for that, but you can kind of see, right? So it's just that white color that's right there, which is just a white primer. It's kind of an off-white, like a cream primer. And then I just throw a black and green oil wash over top of it, and that's what it came out with. So super easy, and I feel like it gave it a nice kind of bamboo that's aging look to it. So I'm really happy, and it's going to make painting that bamboo like way fast because I got to get all that terrain painted for Nova Open.
Are you going through and individually painting all the lashings?
Nope. Oh, the lashings done. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Never again.
Never again.
But the bamboo, I'm just slopping it on with the brush, right?
Yeah.
And just pushing it into the corners and stuff.
And you've got some bone coloring down there too. That looks cool.
Yeah, just a little bit of bone. I haven't actually this I hit with a black and green oil wash. Mm-hmm. This I'm going to hit with a black and brown oil wash to kind of give it kind of a dirty, and then slop it just a little up over the edge so it looks like the ground. Just kind of getting it dirty and muddy there. But I do have a question. So that was my Geek Week. But I do have a question. What color would you paint the trees to look good with that color of a bamboo? What do you think?
Addressing anyone?
Definitely Darcy.
Talking to the expert in the room.
Anyone, everyone.
If you want to do it quick, I would do Basilicanum gray because it's this nice, like warm brown gray. If you want to stick with that earthy tone.
Okay, warm brown gray. Okay.
It's just straight. It's literally like the color of tree bark itself, like that grayish brown color. And you can just slop it on, put a little bit of lamy and medium in there, so it's not like it can get kind of like oil, like a motor oil color if it really saturates. So as long as you spread it around, it gives a good like tree bark color. Or you could go the fleshy route, and if you want to, that would take a little while. I was gonna say you can always do green. like do that green that you've got and then dry brush it with a ivory, and then once you put a red wash over top, it turns it this gross like fleshy brown. If you want to go the flesh gnarlwood,
that sounds cool, but like way too long.
It takes if you want to do it quick, I would just slap on Basilicanum Gray.
Yeah, cool. All right, that's what I'll do. But that was my Geek Week, man. Lots of lashings.
Yes, indeed.
And it actually looks okay. If I were to zoom in, really in, you would notice that by the end, I was just taking the brush and going, looks like there's one there. Looks like there's one there. Looks like there's one there. You know, I gave up by the end.
I think you can get away with that with terrain, right? Like terrain is supposed to be a background piece. And so like, I'm going to move to mine real quick and commenting on yours, Jason, that I was also doing a lot of terrain. And so here, I'm going to show you. See, there's like my hobby setup that I have right there. But I was working on the ziggurat, right, for the Warcry. And I'll hold that a little bit closer. I got the green, like some green. I got to do the bamboo on it and stuff like that, and the gem in the middle. But I did some green with some dry brushing, and decided to go with like a little bit of autumn feel on the leaves there, you know, just to give it some nice contrast. But all of those like little tree branches, Jason, I was just going like zip, zip, zip. You know, like I was not getting in like every little corner. In fact, you can see some of the green on some of them still right now. But I'm like, you know, at like 3 feet away, because nobody's going to pick up the terrain and be like, oh, wow, that's really amazing. You know, like 3 feet away, you're like, oh, wow, that looks really great. So, but I'm there with you. I've got 2 boxes that I'm working on. So I have 5 trees that I have to do with all the bamboo lashings and all that stuff. So
I almost bought that box.
Yeah.
Then I didn't, and then the places I was going to buy it at sold out. So did I miss out on a good Warcry box by not picking that one up?
The one that had this in it?
Yeah.
This was one of my least favorite boxes, actually.
Okay.
So
I should hold out just a little longer.
I would only get it if you really like the aren't like the war bands that were in it, and if you didn't like
it had Stormcast in it, right?
Yeah, and I think those are going to be coming out here soon in their own box. So
in their own
like,
box.
The terrain though wasn't like. Unfortunately, GW's model over the last year has been we're going to give you less but charge you more.
Okay.
So you know, like if you look at the Heart of Gur box, 2 of these boxes that I'm doing equaled that 1 box.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just as much, if not more, than the Heart of Gur box.
In terms of terrain?
In terms of terrain.
Quantity.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
So, yep. And I'm not, like, I think the terrain's cool. It's kind of hard to play with, though. Like, Jason and I, like, we end up catching sleeves and wrists and stuff on it all the time. Like, I need to weight down the trees, I think, a little bit because they are really tipsy. They're kind of top heavy and they're super spindly. So they'll catch, like, a sweatshirt cuff or something like that if you're doing it, and all the terrain will then fall over because they're all connected by bridges and stuff like that. And so it can get a little like I'm eager to see the reveal at Warcry because rumor is that we're moving into a new realm. Darcy, you seem to be smiling about that.
No, I was hoping. That's actually I don't know about that, and I'm hoping for that.
Yeah.
As much as I like Gur, I'm with you on the terrain in Gur. It wasn't my thing. I hope they go back to the big stone ruins.
Those like that starter box
from the starter box original,
so amazing.
Yeah,
like so
I
found
a lot
of good terrain.
Yeah, I found a guy selling one online, assembled, not prime, not painted. I went, oh my god! It like snapped that up right away.
Yeah, definitely. So, but yeah, my Geek Week has just been getting ready for the Nova Open. Darcy, I don't know if you know this, but Jason and I are the tournament organizers for the grand tournament.
I did not know that.
There at the Nova Open. So we will be running a 32-person tournament. So it's going to be the biggest Warcry tournament in North America ever.
Non-narrative.
And that's on Thursday.
Right?
Well, even with the narrative, I know they advertise 40 spots, but they have only ever maxed out at 20. So.
Oh, well, so if we get everyone, then we'll set a Guinness record, right, for Warcry in the U.S.
Yeah.
On the third Thursday of I'm just kidding, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So the Warhammer World, I think they had a bigger tournament. I think they had like 48 or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
well, that's where those guys all are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. kind of cheating, playing it at their headquarters and their cool halls and all that stuff.
They probably had Henry Cavill walk through, and
probably.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Jealous.
Okay, Kalel.
So, I mean, but we're excited for the Nova Open. We just got to get ready for it. So we're painting like crazy at this point just to make sure that it's all ready.
Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty much our Geek
I'm
Week.
sad I'll miss it now. Damn it.
Have you ever been up to the Nova Open, Darcy?
No, and we're in Tennessee, so geographically we could make it, but my husband's going to be out of town that week, or he'll be just getting back in town that week, and it wasn't really going to work out. We just got here in June, so his job is kind of all over the place right now. So he's been gone a good chunk of like off and on for the past like month, basically.
The timing of the Nova Open is a double-edged sword because it's right over Labor Day weekend, and people have kids that are going back to school, kids that are leaving for school, like for college. Like, the timing is like you're either totally free or you're not free at all. Like, it doesn't seem to be like some in-betweens, with it. And so it's just kind of funny how that works out. But you should come and teach some seminars sometime.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, no. Gosh.
Do it, Darcy.
I'm not good at teaching. I can barely explain things to myself. So.
Well, then just sit up there and paint something with the camera on you.
That's even worse. Then I'm
and have a bunch of attitude.
The rest of us will be like, what did she do? What did she just do there?
I don't have attitude in public. Unless there's something that pisses me off, I'm generally very calm. But I'll let you know if it pisses me off.
So Sam Lenz, I have been to one of his courses there where he literally just sat down and painted a zombicide model and just like expounded on the things of life, and people were eating it up.
Didn't say anything.
That's all he did.
Painting.
I could probably work with that.
He was just painting, and he's like, and it was like his typical Bob Ross like chill style, where he's like, and we're just gonna add a little bit of green here. But I was thinking that like sometimes when the wind rushes through the trees, and I mean it's just like like cool, like like it was very serene ambiance that he had going on. So
we can get some plants and a little water feature going for you, Darcy.
Right, exactly.
You could do. Everybody could sit on the floor.
I could probably work with that. Get some like alt rock early 2000s music going.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I guarantee you, whatever classes you put up, you'd sell out. I guarantee it.
Yeah, but then I have this like, I don't know, expectation to perform kind of thing. Okay. Because like if someone is like parting with their money, there's already an expectation after that, whether it's to learn or to have fun. And then I've got to like make sure I meet that, or I'll feel like pressured to meet that. I don't know. I think I'm too much of a hermit. I'm literally in a basement right now and have been every time I've been painting.
Same.
I don't know.
I can tell you that the classes at Nova have, this is where I started, right, in terms of painting. In fact, I was running an RPG in 2018, and I wanted some models to put on the table. And I was like, these models from Games Workshop are exactly what I want. Now I need to learn how to paint them. So I started watching YouTube videos, and then I was like, oh, this Nova Open thing. In fact, I think, Dan, you were the one that told me about it because Dan was playing an X-Wing tournament. And so I went and I took a class from Sam. I took a couple classes from him that weekend. I didn't even play. I just took painting classes the whole weekend. Took a couple classes from Sam, from Roman Lapat.
Yeah,
he was there. That was amazing, right? He had a whole color theory class that was amazing. I took a class from Vince Venturella. I had no idea who he was. I'm just like, it's available, And he was so funny. He was like, you guys may know me from YouTube, and I'm like, I have no idea who you are,
He's been on the show. He's been on the show since then.
So,
did you tell him that in that episode? I didn't know who you were.
Yeah,
I don't think you mentioned that. I think you.
But I'm just saying that, like, I would go to those classes, and then I took some of the GW classes that, like, Duncan was teaching back when Duncan was still there.
Yeah.
And I love Duncan to death, but it was very much like color by numbers in those GW classes.
Yeah, I had a feeling it would be.
And it was so funny because I went from like Sam's class of like how to wet blend, and then I went to the GW class on how to paint skin, and I was like, why is this not working? You know what I mean? Because it was like paint by numbers rather than like the techniques that Sam was showing.
Yeah.
And so it's your mileage varies at those painting classes. So it's kind of interesting. So
We'll see.
I think you could do it.
Maybe when I grow up.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, well, let's let Dan. You got some news for us, I think, right?
Welcome to Tabletop and Beyond News. Sorry.
I'm so happy it's back. We missed it last
back.
time.
I'm
We went to
not
news
very
without
good
the
at it
music.
anymore for some reason. It's terrible. It's just on my cell phone, and it always has been.
Always will
We
be.
don't like do a drop. There's no Chiron. There's nothing. It's just Dan jamming his phone into his microphone and grooving to it.
That's right, man. Low tech.
It's kind of
Low
his
tech.
thing now.
It's
Low tech, high life.
If we try
Opposite
to
of
make it
cyberpunk.
better, it would. If we try to make it better, it'd actually make it worse. I know that doesn't make sense. Okay, so we love box sets. I've got box set news and a little bit of Wizards of the Coast news. This is all RPG stuff. For those who are familiar with the N-World guys, if you've heard of the Ennies at Gen Con, you've heard of N-World. That's from EN World Publishing. They have their own version of 5th edition called Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. And they've got multiple books and supplements. This is the philosophy is 5th edition is really good. Let's do like a harder, more crunchy version of it for people who really want to get more crunch out of their game. So that was one of the game books that got eaten up early in COVID, plus the OGL debacle with Wizards of the Coast. All their stuff flew off the shelves. But they have a new box set coming out. They have a new starter box, and I put a link to it in chat. And it has a 3-part adventure, 5 pre-generated characters, featuring the new player options and character abilities that are unique to 5-up. And they have 91 cardboard tokens for heroes, villains, and monsters, and that is going to go on Kickstarter very soon. These guys really understand D&D. Russ, who is the head of N Publishing, has worked on several of the older editions of D&D, and has been a heavy contributor to the community and has published multiple RPGs as an indie publisher. And so I give them a huge boost. The other box set that is coming out, our very good friends at Free League Publishing announced a Dragonbane box set. Now, this is a redo of a Swedish 1982 RPG that they're re-releasing. So I didn't know if you wanted to put any of those up on the screen for our viewers. So this is the one from Free League.
Jason was this guy.
You were the duck guy?
Yeah. Oh, I was a mallard.
Cool.
But I was a what was I? I was a blacksmith mallard.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Darcy, we played this RPG at Gen Con.
Cool.
So you can get the box set. It's going to have its own set of polyhedral dice and cards and folios and miniature. Those are not minis. I think those are cardboard.
Yeah.
Stand-ups. It is not a D20 system. It's like a 2D20 system, and you guys played it more than I did.
It's the D20, but it's a roll.
Oh, sorry, it's a D20. Yeah. It's a roll low D20. So if you want something D&D-esque, if you want fantasy-esque, but not D&D specifically, we love our friends at Free League, and this is a very old game getting a whole bunch of new love, which is fantastic. The third piece of news.
So let me just ask something real quick, Dan. The reason why it feels so much like D&D, and when we had Tomas on the show from Free League, he told us that the reason why this feels so much like D&D is that back in the 70s and the 80s, they never translated D&D into Swedish. And so they created their own D&D, and that's what Dragonbane essentially is. And they were able to secure the rights and kind of republish it and kind of give it a little bit of a glow up for it, and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it, but it had a D&D feel, but it was not a reskin of D&D. Like, and I think that that's an important point to note. Like, it was not a 5e, setting
knockoff. It's not like the Orc license or something like that. It's its own separate pedigree of rules and fun stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
we got lucky. We got to play. Our GM was Mr. Dragonbane himself.
Yeah,
which really well-known guy in the Dragonbane community. I think we were his like 50th or 60th session that he had run of Dragonbane, and the game, is like a fairly new release or re-release. So really, really fun. A lot of fun.
The content is available now on digitally on DriveThru RPG for $24.95. If you want the full version, you can get it in paper for $49.99. This is an article for those watching on YouTube. Wizards of the Coast has begun releasing third-party content on D&D Beyond, and this is a big deal. So the first bit of content on D&D Beyond that's not Wizards of the Coast is coming from Darrington Press, which is the Critical Roles guys. So they have a source book that's available. It'll have, magic items, creature stat blocks, feats, subclasses, backgrounds, all of those cool things that go along with Critical Role. So for those who are interested in that is available now on D&D Beyond. I think this is Wizards showing that they do care about third-party content, and they're willing to put it on their new flagship offering, which will be D&D Beyond. So interesting RPG news. I don't have any miniature wargaming news. Sadly, I'm empty-handed. Usually Justin, before we hang up the phone on the news, says, oh, there's a thing that's come out. But because he is running Warcry, he's praying that nothing new comes out for Warcry between now and Nova Open.
Well, it was confirmed today with the reveal of that Ardboy boss that comes out. Look at Darcy's face. You were ready to paint that sucker.
I am, yes. I'm gonna revert him back to my ice jaws, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So amazing model reveal that came out today was the Iron Jaws Ardboy boss, which is kind of interesting because that's usually like the battle line foot soldiers that they have. And they made a big announcement that they're going to be doing a huge reveal at the Nova Open. That included Warcry. It included a lot of Age of Sigmar. I think we're going to see a brand new Iron Jaws line, is what I'm thinking, which is exciting because we saw sort of that new pig model, right? The Gorgrunta boss, right? So, or the Magrunta is what they called it. And so I think that we're going to see a lot of really good stuff, which is cool because I think that they've needed a little bit of a refresh. Them and the Bone Splitters. I've got a soft spot in my heart for Bone Splitters, but they need a bit of a refresh too. So, anyway. So I feel I can sleep easy tonight, Dan, knowing that Warcry will not come out until the night before the Nova Open, which will not impact our tournament.
And all the guys will be like, hey, are we going to use the new thing?
Yeah, right.
No, we're not. You can't change your lists. No, we're not.
Yeah, I think that they're going to use the Nova Open to announce the new setting.
Yeah.
But
gamers, they'll want to proxy the new thing during the tournament. They'll do that.
Yeah, well, we'll see. There's no rules for him at that point. So
you're the boss. You can just say, no, man, no. We have to draw the line in the sand somewhere. This is what we're doing.
We already did. No.
Yeah. The line in the sand is 2 weeks before the Nova Open event, which has already passed. So, nothing new at this point. So, anyway, thank you for the news, Dan. We appreciate it. Let's get to our main topic, which is Darcy. Darcy, thank you again for coming on the show and talking to us about all things you. So, the last time we were talking to you, painting was still kind of a hobby plus for you. I don't know that you had really, maybe you were doing some commissions like here or there, but I don't know that you'd really sort of dipped your toe into the professional side of painting fully. Maybe you tested the waters just a little bit, but since then, I think that you've been going pretty hard, right? So why don't you give us a little update as to what you've been up to?
Well, we moved from Utah, which is the last place we were when I had talked to you. Moved from there to Tennessee because my husband's in the Air Force. We're originally from Virginia, so it's great. We're close to home. That has not been an adjustment at all. So got a new studio set up, everything, and my son starts first grade. So we started just last week, 2 weeks ago. But now that he's in school full time, I'm painting again. So I'm very happy, of course. But yeah, so I've been doing full-time commissions while he's at school. I will paint the entire time and remember to eat lunch eventually. And we'll work on that in addition to the Games Workshop stuff that they send me.
What kind of commissions do you get? Are these people or companies or what?
I've done company stuff before, but I get kind of bogged down. Like it ends up being like a whole like series of things, and I'm not. That's like the equivalent of like army painting, which I try not to do as much anymore. It's just not my thing. I'm way too easily distracted. So I'm like, well, there's a unit palette cleanser. There's a unit palette cleanser. So I need diversity in like everything I paint. So it's mostly individuals. Being in Utah, there was a huge, I don't know why, no one knows why, a huge Warhammer community there. So was not want for work. And it was really cool getting to see like my stuff in tournaments that people had like commissioned me to do. And then I'd show up to like take pictures and stuff and just experience the tournaments and talk to everyone and be like, oh, hey, that's the thing I painted.
That's awesome.
So
there's a direct correlation between the lack of bars and the increase of gamers in Utah. So
you might have solved it. That actually might be it.
We can reverse engineer what's happening. We know the community very, very well.
I think you hit it right on the head. But I've got a pretty active community here in Tennessee as well. Because I wasn't sure what to expect. I mean, we're right outside Knoxville, maybe about 30, 40 minutes. And that's fairly college town. So it's like
there you go.
Yeah. So it's a pretty active community here as well.
Nice. Cool. They just had NashCon too.
Yes.
This last weekend.
Yep.
Which was, obviously a big Warhammer tournament. So I don't know. You probably, with your husband out of town.
Yeah, he was out of town for that, and then the week he got back, his mom visited here. So we've been doing a lot. So
yeah.
So now that it's just back to normality, I'm like, okay, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned doing stuff for GW, and I noticed over the last year or so your name popping up quite a bit in the Warhammer community articles, right? Like, hey, check out these amazing paint jobs from our amazing community painters, Darcy Bono. So like I've noticed it quite a bit. So maybe walk us through the process. Like, how did you at one come to the attention of the great James Workshop out there, right? And how did he pluck you out from obscurity and bring you to such prominence here?
That was a very dramatic but accurate way of putting that. Basically, I got a message on Twitter one day, a direct message that I really was afraid was a scam at first. And the only thing that convinced me it wasn't was that the Games Workshop like email, not the domain, but the thing that comes at the end of the email, the .com part, I was like, oh, that looks like a legit like end to an email. Was from
it didn't say like .ru.
No, it wasn't .gmail or this is definitely a scam. It was whatever their like official like business email handle thing is. I used to know that word, but I saw that. But anyway, they messaged me and they're like, hey, it's the marketing director. Do you want to paint stuff for us, basically? And I was like, oh yes, thank you. So that was pretty much it from there. They contacted me and said someone dropped my name, and yay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I like I said, we have been following your stuff for a long time. And in fact, as I mentioned in our previous episode, one of the ways that I even stumbled across your stuff is I was looking for Necrons that looked like Terminators, right? With the red instead of the
I forgot about them.
I'm telling you, it's still like to this day, like some of my favorite models that I've seen, like they just like a whole bunch of Terminators out there instead of like the green glowy ones, right? And so like those were so amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm not surprised that Games Workshop has kind of picked you up and has featured you. I mean, you're like being shown along the likes of people like like James Wapple and Angel Heraldez and like some of these like other like really big name painters that have been around the community for a long time. And you're kind of like the new girl on the block a little bit in there, but it's pretty awesome to see.
Thank you. Well, I think they put me in there because how I paint is like an attainable, like a relatively attainable level in like a year's time, whereas the gods basically, like the pantheon, is like you see that and you're like, well, no, but at least with like my stuff, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure I can dissect this and do this, and anyone can. Like that's like kind of my whole like. If you've seen like my YouTube channel, like most of my stuff on there concludes with, and that didn't take any skill. So, so that's kind of my brand, if you will, is that you don't have to be God tier to paint well, essentially, or to paint something you're proud of.
Yeah. Now, so I'm curious. I'm curious a little bit about the process, and if we're getting into like, I'm sure that you had to sign non-disclosure agreements like out the wazoo with Games Workshop, because I mean that's kind of how they roll. So if we're going into territory that you're just like I just can't talk about it, just let us know. But
okay.
Like, how far in advance do they send you their models to paint? Because they like to feature them relatively soon after they make the announcements for these things.
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Okay.
But if you could.
I'll say this, a reasonable, usually it varies, and usually a reasonable amount.
Okay. All right, fair.
This isn't me trying to be vague. This is just me trying to remember what's in what I signed.
Yeah.
That would mean it would not be an unreasonable amount of time.
I can
we
neither
can infer
confirm
that.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I've signed anything.
So if an unreasonable amount of time is 24 hours, we know that it's not 24 hours. We know it's
right.
more than 24
It's left of launch.
It varies. I can say that.
Good.
So, is this again, like you don't have to go here, but I'm genuinely curious. Is this something that like well, let me preface this a little bit. Games Workshop has sort of reduced the amount of artists that they sort of have on staff. Like you saw Duncan leave, you saw Peachy leave, you saw and I'm blanking on her name. I feel really bad about this, but
Louise Sugden.
She was amazing on there, by the way. But you've kind of seen them pull away from that Warhammer TV tutorial that they used to be doing. You're not seeing as many kind of paint sessions and things that they've done so much on Warhammer Plus as much anymore. And what you are seeing is a lot more of the community painters like yourself and James Wapple and stuff like that they're like highlighting like, hey, look at these amazing things you can do with these models, right? I imagine that like it's a lot cheaper, for example, to have you do some great painting for them and show pictures of it versus, hiring someone, like Louise on there and, be on the camera and be on call 24/7 painting up stuff for them. So they've kind of pulled back from that model. Is this like a lucrative relationship that you have with Games Workshop, or is this something you just get the models and it's like really for you to like showcase your talents and that brings in stuff for you because of the name recognition?
Yeah, the latter, at least for me.
Okay.
That's 100%. The latter option is exactly that. But I think you hit it right on the head that it's cheaper for them to just get free publicity from people that already have advertising for them, basically, rather than them keep artists in-house, have to pay them, and then only have them as their mouthpiece. So I think from a business standpoint for them, that makes sense. They're kind of, it feels like to me, this isn't like anything that they've said, but my background is in marketing. I have a business degree, but from that standpoint, I think what they're doing is, as far as their marketing communication, they're going to be using content creators like us to be their mascots instead of having their mascots in-house. That's just me theorizing. As long as we're not like biting the heads off bats and making their brand look bad, I don't think that they really have much reason to revert from a business standpoint, to revert back to how they were. because they've got more mouthpieces now and they don't need to pay them.
And recognizable ones too, right? Like, I mean,
Right.
yourself, sometimes they've had Miniac paint some stuff for them, who's got a huge following, right? They've got like other big name painters do it. And so they, Duncan arguably achieved miniature painter celebrity status, right? I mean, like, everybody knew who Duncan was, and it's kind of from their videos and all that stuff that they did. And the thing is that a lot of these painters, like yourself, Vince Venturella, like other ones, like, they all have their own YouTube channels now that you can go see their techniques on their own YouTube channels. They don't need to create it on Warhammer Plus or Warhammer TV or something like that. So I think you're absolutely right. That move is, they don't need to build up another celebrity. They've got plenty that they can go to,
right?
For it. So it's kind of interesting.
That I think is going to be their strategy with that.
Yeah.
And that way they don't have to worry about retaining them as well. Because they'll just have a big pool, and if someone wants to leave, that's fine. We got a big pool.
I will say though that I think it does hurt their painting style, though, their painting technique, because I don't know. I don't think that you use the Citadel paints the way that Games Workshop teaches their people to paint it, which is like the base, the layer, the highlight. You know what I mean? Like,
but all of mine, or most of mine, is still contrast paints, which is still GW.
Yep.
So
Yep.
even though it's not to their traditional brand, it's still their product, and they don't require me to do that. That's just how I'm comfortable painting.
Yeah.
So
do they require you to use their Citadel paint line?
No, we can. I mean, I've never been told anything different about it before. Obviously, when you're submitting like photos for articles and stuff, don't have like 3D printed third party stuff. Like that just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
But like, you can't convert using 3D printed stuff and then have it on their official website.
Yeah.
But as far as like paints and stuff go, I haven't been told one way or the other. Stop that or anything.
Well, that's good. I mean, that gives you freedom as the artist.
Yeah, because I think realistically, if that was the case, they would just do it all, and like it just wouldn't be feasible to have people sign up for that with any like sincerity, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's an acknowledgement that the momentum of the business model doesn't require like a vertical chain of events. We come out with the model and the paint, we show everybody how to do it, and then we do this linear set of activities, therefore we sell more stuff. Maybe that was the case, I don't know how many years ago. But now they get to put their stuff out into the universe and see what the universe says back to them and say, oh, well, geez, when we put the sculpt out, we never thought that Darcy would do these things with it. And now it's exceeded our expectations, which I think is a cooler thing. In my opinion, it's a cooler thing.
The community sells the product.
Yeah, basically. That's it in a nutshell, I think.
Yep.
So, Darcy, how do you get most of your commissions? Do they come in like through local, like you're in a local shop type of thing, or do people hit you up online and say like, "Hey, are you open to commissions? Can I have you do something for me?"
Yeah, it's both. I was really pleasantly surprised that here, like in Tennessee, I basically put out the word well before, like maybe 2 months before we left, saying, "Hey, I'm moving to Tennessee. What's it like there as far as like gaming goes? This is what I play. This is what I like to do. P.S. I'm a commission painter, so if anyone's interested, hello." And then like by the time I got here, I had like 3 or 4 jobs already lined up, and so that's all been through like word of mouth, just posting, "Hey, I painted this" on a local Facebook group kind of thing. So it's word of mouth locally, and then I've had people just send me requests online as well. I'm really haphazard, I think is the polite word for it, when it comes to my operation. It's just like, "Hey, are you open? Do you want to paint this?" "Yeah, that looks good. Just send me an email. I'll send you, like, if you want to put down a deposit, go for it. If not, whatever." I'm very, very laid back.
What kind of a percentage deposit do you usually target for most commissions?
If it's big, if it's something that I know I'm going to have to put in there's a slight risk to it kind of thing. Like if this falls through, or if this is it's going to be a heavy amount of money, if something financially happens with them, I generally will ask for about half. which no one has balked at before. But that's generally for like big centerpiece things that are big time investments, big money investments, because there's an opportunity cost for if you take those and someone backs out, you've not only lost part of the money from that, you've lost time you could have put into something else. So I tend to not take those for that reason. I've never had it happen, but the fact that it could happen, I'm like, so.
And I'm kind of a newbie in some of this stuff. So they pre-assemble it and they'll ship it to you pre-assembled.
No,
or do they send you the sprue and you assemble it up?
I usually will do that way. I've worked on pre-assembled stuff before, and it's just it's not worth it. It's not worth it. No. And even sub-assembled stuff before, I'm like, I should have just done this myself. But it's
good to know. Good to know.
I sound like a total prick saying it like that, but just it's like trying to finish someone else's story almost. Like you have to like see how they like put it together and then do it how you're comfortable doing it. So it's just a hoop to jump through that it's just easier if I do it on my own. So I'll generally ask for new in box or new on sprue, or like if it's assembled, something that's not crucial, like an arm, like the multi-piece arm. But if it's like a torso and the tail wraps around the legs and the legs are already there, then that's kind of a deal breaker.
I know that I actually really enjoy assembling. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, I do. I really enjoy it. And part of it is because as I'm working through it, especially like a Warcry Warband, for example, as I'm working through it, I get to know those models really well. I mean, you're like, okay, this is the guy with the sword, this is the guy with the hook or whatever. And, there's like, they're my own. They're my babies a little bit.
You talk to him too. Hey, little guy, we're just going to put this little shield on you.
I might outsource some stuff to you because I can't stand assembly.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that helps me is as I'm doing assembly, I'm like, oh, this is an interesting cloak. Like, this would be really cool if it contrasted with the leggings that they have, or because I'm just kind of being able to like just gluing that together and holding it and looking at it. To me, is like you become intimately familiar with like what is going on that model, like the dynamic pose that it has, and
that's true.
Like where would the light hit this thing, and like it gets me thinking about all of that. When I've gotten a lot of secondhand models before, just because I found them cheap on eBay or Facebook or something like that, and I'm kind of like, okay, I have to take the time to almost study the models to become that familiar with it and like how I want to attack painting it, So I do like assembling just for that.
Well, you're going to a place.
I agree with you. I do think I prefer to paint a mini I've assembled just for that knowledge. And I know what's tricky about it. I know, oh, well, this is GW wanted this guy to be flying up off the base. And so his cape is actually the thing that's the structural element holding his little ass up in the air. I already have an opinion about that model because it's already frustrated me, or it was easy or fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I and sometimes I use my painting step to fix my assembly mistakes.
Yeah, I have done that. That is definitely a factor for me. Like, this isn't a mold line; it's a scar.
It's a scar.
Right,
supposed to be there the whole time.
A scar running all the way up his leg.
Do you ever paint on the sprue before assembly?
Only if it's something that has. It's funny. I literally just did that. I was doing Abaddon, and it has the big scenic base that has like a Space Marine torso and a bunch of random debris in it. That I did paint on the sprue, but only because I knew the edges that connected to the sprue didn't need to be sanded down or reprimed after it, because it was going to have texture paste over top of it, which I feel like is kind of rare for most miniatures, that you're going to have something that doesn't have an edge that's viewable. Like, you might have like a edge, but like the other connecting points you're gonna have to sand down and reprime and stuff. So not usually.
Yeah.
This concept of sanding is new to me.
What? Wait, are you being sarcastic or sincere?
He's not. No, he's not.
No. I'll use a little the tiny razor blade X-Acto knife things.
Oh.
And I just do a little shave after I get it off.
I do. I'm just really bad at it, so I have to sand it after.
I do a lot of my stuff. I do oily and grungy and grimy, so it covers a lot of that stuff.
I've recently had to resort
'Cause I'm
to
lazy.
the equivalent of a Dremel tool to fix mistakes I
Oh
made
wow!
in assembly, and I'm like, oh, I really messed that one up. We're gonna take it all down a millimeter to smooth it out.
Yep.
I remember the
Done
first
that.
time you assembled your models, and you sent us a picture like, this Gorilla Glue is just not working on these models, and we're like,
I didn't know what to do. I was a
What are you
newbie. No one told me. There was no like, hi, you just got a Games Workshop box. These are the 6 things you need to do. I was like, Justin, I'm failing miserably and I hate this hobby. And
You had
now
like
I'm not.
the solder helping hand things, like pinching
Yeah, I was like,
parts of the
why
model
isn't
and
this
hold it together.
working? I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So there is kind of like literally, how long ago was that, Justin, when first edition Warcry was on its way out and I bought a box of stuff that was following the meta and got
It was a year
nerfed?
ago.
It got nerfed
Yeah.
immediately after the second edition came out.
Yeah, last
So-
year, I think.
That's the only amount of time I've been doing Games Workshop stuff, but I really think there's not enough, in my opinion, there's not enough. Hi, you're a super noob. Let's layer this. Let's layer your knowledge from zero. Because that was me a year ago, literally.
They did do, and I feel like they made an amazing tool and then they didn't market it at all. Like they made the Citadel Paint app, which was a while ago. I want to say that was like 2018, 2019, probably 2019. And it was great. It had like recipe lists on multiple different types of like colors, and you could sort it by, hue, blues, greens, teals, whatever. They had a start to finish, like you said, like an entry guide, like here's your assembly shtick, here's your priming stuff. Like it was like a really good crash course. It was free. There were no ads because it was just them. It was a marketing tool for them. But then you never heard anything else about it. They updated it, and there was a community article, and that's it. I'm like, this is a really well put together and helpful thing. I still will go back and look at it. But it's where I usually will like point people to who are like you said, Brando, where the hell do I start? Because it's just a good like one-stop shop in the palm of your hand, and it doesn't cost you anything.
That would have been great. I mean, I just needed 5 minutes of somebody to explain to me the different kinds of adhesives that you need when you're modeling. I just didn't know.
That they would have just been like, oh, the cement glue.
You have to buy our thing. I'm like, do I have to buy your thing, or can I buy anything? So there's stuff like that and I think since I was the guy who was poo-pooing, like Justin and Jason were obsessing about modeling, and I'm like, well, I'll do it. I'll prove to you that this is terrible. And then I got totally hooked on it. So, so I get it now. But what I want to do now is find other noobs and say, hey, look at these 6 mistakes I made. These are how you could avoid them and not go down the road I went. Because the day is not going to come where I'm going to paint as good as Darcy Bono. That day is not going to come, Darcy.
It can. It really
can. But I'm also, like a dad, and I'm an employee and stuff like that. But I love painting. I've always loved painting canvases. And this has been a really great outlet for my artistic side. And it connects art and gaming together in a way that I never thought would happen. But I've got a couple of friends who just won't jump in the water. They're wearing their swim trunks. They're standing on the side of the pool, and you're like, get in the pool. And I think the more people that join the hobby, and even though of course I was following your Insta before I started painting, actually watching creators like you and a few others that I was interested in, my goal was not to be that good. My goal was to just get in the pool and see what I could do. And so I think you're really contributing a lot to the hobby because it looks fun and interesting. It's a magical thing to take a gray sprue and bring it to life and give it a story and give it light and a dynamic motion. It's almost like animation in a way through paint.
Yeah,
it's really
that's
cool.
a really good way of putting it. I like that.
So keep doing it.
Oh, thank you.
Don't stop.
One of the things that I think is so a lot of times, and we talked about this with quarter paint. I don't know. Do you know quarter paint?
Oh yes, my God, he does some of my favorite orcs.
I know he's awesome. One of the things that we talked about with him is that like I could look at a picture if I'm scrolling through my Instagram or whatever and be like, oh, there's a quarter paint image, right? Like he's just very distinct. And I think that every good artist has a style. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you what your style is. Maybe you can comment about that. But if I were to say what is Darcy Bono's style, I think that your style is just clean, crisp models, right? Like that is, even though you've got like some weathering here, like it's super intentional. Like everything's where it needs to be and pops out the way it needs to pop out. And so I think that is really the style that you bring to the table, is just nice, clean, crisp models that just look really good.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
That is it. That is what I try to be, actually. That's how I enjoy painting. So thank you. That I couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. So I pulled up your Ursula model from Cadia, right? She came out it was about 8 months ago, I think.
Yeah, 6 or 8. Yep.
Yeah. And she was sort of the centerpiece of the Cadian troopers for the Imperial Guard. Walk us through this model a little bit. Like, you got this. I think that's a custom base, though, right? Or is that her normal base?
No, she comes with that. Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, pretty great, huh? Yeah, I was very happy with that, because I don't usually do that. Like, she's not very grim dark, but if you look at the base, that is a grim dark landscape. That's what that 40K represents, basically, is a pile of rubble and debris. I don't usually do that. So when it comes to basing, I am like, Dan said that he did canvas. Canvas is my kryptonite. If you give me a blank canvas, I have no idea what the hell to do. I'm just like, I'll draw a smiley face or something. But that's me with like any kind of urban warfare, any kind of industrial grunge. My brain just stops and doesn't know what it should look like. So the fact that that base came exactly like that, I was like, perfect. I will put the cement where the cement goes and the iron and rust where the iron and rust goes. Great. So that was pretty much it for the base. And then I think her original box art has her in this weird like mint green, which I don't know. I was like, well, damn, her dad had his big cool black jacket. She's supposed to be wearing that. On the back of her, there's actually like the wound that supposedly, I don't think he's dead. I think he's MIA, if I remember correctly. But there's like
he's probably dead.
Yeah, he's it's 40K, who knows? But
he's mostly dead. He's mostly dead.
He's probably dead. But yeah, there's that. I'm like, well, this is his coat. I'll paint it like his box art because it's his coat, and then do her in the original like standard Cadian color scheme.
Nice.
So that was pretty much it with her. That, and her face was kind of a miracle because I got it right and was like, that looks great. I'll just touch up this one spot, and I have to paint female faces a lot in order to get in like a good confident rhythm. And I'd been painting nothing but like orcs before painting her. And I was like, I'll just touch up this one spot. And now she looks like a clown. Fantastic. And then totally messed it up. And
beauty's difficult. Beauty is difficult.
I went, I'm not going to strip this because this is her face. And damn. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to layer over it. I'm just going to start fresh, kind of, and do it again. So this is 2 more layers of paint than I care to admit on her face, but it actually filled her cheekbones out. It filled things out more and gave her like a doughier, like rounded. I'm getting there, so I can't say anything. Just a older looking face, and it worked. I was like, holy crap, it worked out.
Happy accident. Accident.
It's interesting to me that you talk about like, painting a female face versus a male face. I think a lot of people are just like, I'm going to put some Bugman's Glow on this Reichlin Flesh Shade and just hit it with a couple of, like Cadian Flesh Tone, call it a day. And not think about like the difference between male and female face. Like, what do you have to look out for when you're painting a female face versus a male face?
So take this with a grain of salt, because I am still relatively inexperienced, because most of my stuff are like beastmen, orcs, big cartoonish fun faces that you can't really mess up. But from what I've noticed when painting faces in general, sex aside, is the less paint on the face the better, and except in her case where she was old and doughy, so that worked. But I generally will just do white and then go with like shades and shade darker instead of doing, like you said, the traditional Bugman's glow shade, and then because you're putting layers and layers and layers on a tiny surface with tiny details. And I feel like unless you're like a really good painter and you understand how your consistencies work, you're kind of asking for disaster. So I will, because I screw stuff up all the time, the way that I found that's most reliable is just do thin shades rather than thin layers of paint and tint it that way. So with women, I found that generally that works really well too. Because there's so much more subtle transitions. Because if you end up with like really gaunt cheeks, they either look like they have cholera or they look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I feel like it's easier to be careful with shades, especially with female faces, because of the more subtle color transitions. It's generally how I work with it. Sorry, that was kind of a rant, but
no, it's interesting because I was painting some faces the other day, and I mean, granted, they were male faces. They were clone troopers, so they're all the same faces. But you know, the funny thing is I realized like I put kind of a nice base coat on there, and then I had some glaze consistency and just kind of like do, and I was like, I think it's done. Like, you know, because like I didn't want to put like much more on there because it would have like caked it up a little bit. And I was like, the highlights are highlighted and the lowlights are lowlighted, and I think I'm done. Yeah. You know, and I was kind of surprised at how quick it went comparatively to like, you know, their armor or the muscles or, you know, like the shirt or something like that they were wearing. So kind of interesting.
That's where my Daughters of Cain was so painful because they're basically running around in bikinis on the battlefield,
all skin.
So you have to. It has to look real. It has to look not amateurish, and a stray brush mark in the wrong place, and bad things happen. So I gave myself a very difficult task as a newbie. It was Justin's job to give me orcs, and he gave me Cainite daughters, and it's his fault. So, but I learned. I learned from it. I learned from it, but it was painful.
I bet.
Yeah. So I just pulled up. I think this is, if I remember correctly, this is a Fluxmaster.
Yeah, this is a kit bashed one actually. That is a pink. That's a pink horror from the original Silver Tower box. And he's got another pink horror's arm holding. That's actually the banner from the current pink horror box that I cut the big burning moon icon off, and that is a 3D printed thing of magic. That little magic cones from Make It Epic Basing. They do a lot of really cool 3D prints, but I put that on there. But that is technically a pink horror, but I was using it as the Fluxmaster in Warcry.
Now, what I said your style is crisp, clean, smooth. The other part of your style that goes along with it is vibrant. That I think so. Like you look at your ice orcs, and like they are icy blue, but they're very vibrant. And your autumnal Sylvaneth, right, that you have is very vibrant as well. I don't think that any other model would scream out vibrant than this one right here. I think you've got every color in the rainbow on this guy, which is kind of thematic to him. What is interesting to me is like if you look down, like the transitions between oranges and reds are pretty, like, I mean that makes sense to me, but like this green to blue is just amazing. And like how do you approach these types of transitions yourself?
So that I can't remember if I was drinking or not. I know it was either my birthday or Mother's Day, but I was having a very good time. But I was in a great mood. I was like, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want because it's whatever the day was. But I decided this was when Adepticon was coming up, and I wanted to run Demons of Tzeentch, and I wanted to make that one as nuts as I possibly could. So I literally just looked at the color wheel and followed the color wheel, and that is 100% contrast paints. I think I added a little bit of fluorescent highlighting towards the end on some parts, but that's all the different contrast paints. And but if you look, it does just follow the color wheel. So look at his foot, the blue foot. That's just blue fades into green because green has blue in it, so that blends naturally. That green then fades into yellow. That's on the other side of green on the color wheel. That yellow then fades into orange, then fades into red. It's just following the color wheel the whole way. There's not a spot on that model where the colors like that aren't next to each other on the color wheel. So the whole thing was actually really easy. Because those colors blend because whatever color is next to it is already in the next color. If that makes sense.
Do you find wet blending to be effective in this scenario, or
This
just normal?
This guy was 100% wet blended. I would put one down and then immediately put the other, rinse my brush, and then in between, and just keep moving. The contrast medium really helped with that because it keeps it workable longer. But yeah, he's 100% wet blended as far as his like body goes.
How do you, with your working Citadel contrast paint, how do you control for the blotchiness that some people complain about?
The contrast medium and working in patches. I feel like when it came out, GW really had this kind of like slather it message, which you can, but then you get what you get. It basically you get an oversaturation because you're putting too much liquid on one surface that's not dispersing. So in order to do that and to get it to disperse evenly, I generally will tell people it's almost like icing a cupcake. You wouldn't just go and put it. I mean, I would maybe, but you generally, when you're smoothing or laying mortar for that matter, you're smoothing it over a surface instead of just dolloping it on top. So that's generally what I'll say is just mix in some contrast medium that keeps it working, that keeps it spreadable, and then work in patches so it's not just congealing in one location. That's
great. Do you ever balance out? Do you stay strictly in Citadel contrast and augment with some regular acrylics? Do you ever augment with like an Army Painter speed paint or a Vallejo equivalent, or do you just kind of keep with the Citadel palette?
That's a really good question. And I'm actually kind of in a crossroads with that because I did buy the new Army Painter mega set because I'd heard rave reviews on the lack of having to work with the medium and kind of play by ear until you figure it out. I haven't tested all of them, but the ones I've tested I've really liked, but I have run into that activation issue here and there, not with all of them. But at this point, the only reason I'm still sticking primarily to Citadel is just because I know it better. I have not tried any of the Vallejo Express just because I've got a lot. I need to get through the Army Painter one and experiment with that first.
Cool.
But at this point, it's just because I'm so familiar with the Citadel contrast.
Yeah, your tool set is your tool set. You know.
Yeah. There are a few colors in the Army Painter one that I'm like, this is perfect. This isn't in the Citadel range. I'm going to work with this. They've got a really great one, I think, called Noble Skin, which is this really beautiful, like deep chocolate brown, like not quite leather, but not quite wood either. It's really nice. I bought the same set and I'm really enjoying it too. So yeah. Of course, I'm not putting out your level of quality of work, but that's great. One of the things that I've thought about as I've worked with as I've been shopping through the Citadel paints, sometimes with the contrast paint, sometimes I worry that the two colors in the contrast paint are not different enough. Like the two yellows are just yellow, and you can't really tell when it went from one yellow to the other. Have you noticed that, or am I just being I did. I did. There are definitely some colors that are pretty synonymous. But one of them that I just did in the last Word Bearers tutorial that came out, Tesseract Glow and Stinging Scorpion, they've got a little bit different consistency to them. One's more of like a highlighter yellow. It's got a little bit more yellow to it, and the other one's got a little more green to it, but they're pretty dang close. Iron Jaws yellow and it was one of the other ones. It might have been Eodon yellow. They were. It's like comparing a lemon and a banana. Like it's like I would know the difference because I work with colors so much all the time. But to someone that's just like, okay, I want a yellow. I feel like they kind of did double dip a few times.
Cool. I had a struggle with Army Painter Speed Paint Yellow. I don't even remember what the yellow was called, but
it's really an orange.
Well, the thing is, I accidentally, like I was painting, I accidentally got some on another part of the model. You know, I'm like, oh crap. So I'll wait till it dries, then I'll go back. Well, I went back and I tried to go over it. And every time I went over it, it reactivated and came to the surface. I could never get rid of it. Like I couldn't get it
the reactivation thing has been it hasn't been apparent in all of it, but when it's there, it's like
I'm like, oh boy. All right. Fortunately, it
Mhm.
was kind of a tucked under, so only I know
That's
it's
good.
there. Right.
Yeah, all my
I will always see it.
all my 1.0 speed paints are in a box right now. I'm just using the 2.0. I don't really go to the one unless there's a color that I'm like, oh, I'm missing a color. Where is that great color? But yeah, just for that reason. But then there's weird drying. Sometimes the new army painter stuff dries a little scaly and it can peel,
Yes,
in fact, which
I
is a little.
noticed that.
So that everything's pros and cons. You got to figure out what's going to work.
Yeah.
What works for your project.
All right, so here we have a plague marine that I
Typhus.
think was very much kit bash, right?
No, that's Typhus. That's just
Is
straight.
it really like
straight
all of the
Typhus.
flies and all that too, huh?
Yeah. Typhus, Herald of Nurgle, Herald of the Plague. I can't remember his full
Yeah.
title, but yeah, Typhus.
When did you do this one?
This was just this past summer or spring. It's for 40
Okay.
hours of 40K. It was a I think it might still be ongoing. I'll send you the link if that's the case. But it was a charity event in the UK that was raising money for an organization called Camo, which was basically just a mental health support charity and anti-suicide program, basically. So donated him for that. And the color scheme, it was part of like a bigger army project. So the Matt, who was running the project, basically said, this is what we want it to look like. This is how we're going to paint it. And he did the traditional like layering base paint technique. And I looked at it and went, well, I think I can do that with just contrast paints. And I did.
Nice.
So that's
I think
contrast.
you can definitely see like the contrast on the leather, and the skin here, and even on the armor right here, right? Like, and this is a testament to kind of what Dan was talking about, which is like if you followed that initial GW, just slap it on and let it flow into the recesses, you'd get sort of that coffee staining, that blotchiness that you'd look. And I can see like how this has been smoothed out and like taken down into the shadows. With that to give it that nice contrast on it, right? Not just from the contrast paints, but the contrasted colors, right? In the light shadows. So it looks this looks really good. You can see sort of like this in this. I assume this is smoke right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on his back. There's like smoke coming out of these little like grenade looking things.
Yeah, so looks great.
Thank you.
It's great. Now, here we get into sort of your Tyranids, right, that you have going on. In fact, I'm going to pull up these ones because these ones are probably my favorite. And I know you have a closer image of it.
Yeah, that was the one.
They're very patriotic, red, white, and blue Tyranids. They're great.
that I can't take credit for because that was a commission for a guy who had the army box and was like, hey, do you want to paint these? And I was like, yes. I wanted to paint them anyway, but getting money to paint things that I'd be painting myself, I was like, all right, sweet. So yeah, he gave me like a couple of things from online. High Fleet Kraken is pretty close, but then there's another one. It's like High Fleet, and it's named after the giant crab that Hercules fought. That's name eludes me right now, but that's why they're on the beach, because they're that crab reference.
Oh, cool.
Mm.
Oh, cool. I get it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I like is the blues that you've put on there, right? Like it gives it almost a bioluminescent feel.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. Just enough, not like a ton, but
right.
Now, did he I assume it was he, the person that commissioned you, did they pick the color scheme or did you?
He did he did the red and the bone color. But he said, it doesn't have to look exactly like this picture, because in the picture that he had pulled from as a reference, it was much darker red, like almost like a deep crimson and black. And I don't know how I got the blue involved. That's what it was. I asked, what do you want for your accent color? And he's like, well, okay, whatever you want.
So what's an accent color?
Basically your third color that pops, that brings the pop. Yeah, you know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the folks at home, it's the it's the color that pops. So he's like, yeah, do whatever you want. I'm like, okay, well, it'll definitely be teal since he's coming out of the ocean. That'll tie it kind of all together, but still pop against the red. So that it was mostly his that I kind of augmented a little bit.
So this kind of brings up a question that I have, which is like, when you're taking these commissions, how much of it is people saying this is the color scheme that I want for these, and how much of it is them saying I don't care, just make it look good? What percentage of your customers are either way?
I'd say 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I'd say 50-50. I prefer for them to tell me what they want. Because otherwise, again, it's the blank canvas syndrome where I'm like, that could be anything. It's like telling me, make me some lunch. I'm like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you feel? Are you feeling tacos or are you feeling pizza? So, I prefer, I can work either way, but if I had to choose, I would much rather prefer you tell me the direction to go. Because otherwise I feel it's safest just to go box art and then enhance from the box art, because I don't want to take time making a color scheme that I think looks good and then have it be total, ass opposite from what they were thinking.
Now, you mentioned that he had a thing that was very deep crimson red, but this, this looks like there's a lot of orange at the end, which if you look at a real legit crab, right, they've got a lot of orange in them. It's not just red. So have you had it to where like someone's like, I want this navy blue, and because the contrast that you're trying to make, you've got like royal or some sky blue in there, and people are like, oh, that's too light, or that's not quite the shade that I wanted? Has that ever happened to you?
Not usually. I'll generally do like a color test on part of the model if I'm uncertain and say, hey, is this good? And I don't think I've had any where they're like, no, that's too, where I've had to really touch it up. I've had some where it's like maybe add a little bit more whatever to it, but none where I've had to like revamp anything too much.
Where'd you get that mini conch shell?
That is also from Make It Epic Basing, the same guys that do the 3D printed.
It's a perfect looking shell.
Yeah, they have one that's just sea critters. They have one with like little sea slugs. They have one with crabs. They have conch shells and sand dollars.
That's cool.
Yeah, you can either buy the STL files or you can have them print it and send it to you. I think they're one of the guys was out of North Carolina, but they're in the US.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so my second favorite skirmish game is Kill Team. You've got a Kinbad Farstrider here, and I love your camouflage cloak here.
Thank you.
I think it's awesome.
Oh, it's super easy, man. It is unbelievable.
Is it really?
I'll send you the link. It's on my YouTube page. It's laughably easy.
Because I need to paint some Space Marines, some snipers, and I want to get, and they have cloaks, and so I was going to do a camo thing.
Yep, all sponging and contrast paints, and the only thing that's not contrast paints are the actual tiger stripes in there, and that's pretty much all there is to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did some camouflage on some clone troopers because I did like a Kashyyyk world, Star Wars army. So I got Wookiees and Yoda and Kashyyyk troopers, and I did a bunch of stippling in different colors and stuff like that for their camouflage armor. But I didn't put the tiger stripes on them because that wasn't sort of the box art. I'm taking an image from the movie, right? So using it as sort of the box art that I call it, but I didn't put the stripes on them. I did put stripes recently on some on my veteran guardsmen, like the the Death Corps at Krieg. They've got that sort of that roll that's on the top of their packs. And I was watching the Pacific, which is like that World War II series, and I noticed that the Marines that shipped out had those same backpacks with that same roll on top, and it was their camouflage poncho that they would wear. And so I did a I had colored them in like a light blue, kind of the horizon blue French cloak from World War I as their coats, right? And so the camouflage that I put on there was gray, black, and white, basically, right? That would kind of blend in a little bit better instead of like a green, and so it worked out okay. It was just a tiny area, and I had to you kind of have to exaggerate it a little bit more than what it would be in real life, just because it's a miniature, right? And I thought it worked out okay. So we'll see how it looks on the table. But
cool.
Yeah, but camouflage is one of those that it seems easy, and then it can be easy, but then if you do it wrong, then you're just like, what am I doing wrong here? So yeah.
It's one of those almost one of those less is more kind of things.
Yeah. And I love your, orange hair, blue skin contrast there. That's such a great contrast. And that orange hair really brings that focus to the face and the head of this model. Because a lot of people want to look at the gun, this kind of captured Pathfinder, or it's not a captured Pathfinder because they're part of the Tau Empire, but they want to look at the gun, but you draw it right back to his head with that, which I think is great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me pull up these guys. So one of the things, I have this love-hate relationship with Yellow Space Marines. When they are done really well, I love them. I love them. And when they're not done very well, I loathe them. They're horrible, and to me, it's like you really need to do them well to look really good on the table. But if you do them well, boy, they look sharp. They look really, really sharp. So what is your trick in working with yellow? Is this all contrast as well?
Yes, it is. So, as I sound super conceited in this, but I was patting myself on the back for. This is my most popular YouTube video. It just came out before we moved, and it's got I think it's 50 or 60,000 views because people don't like painting yellow. The real thing. And this is, again, no skill involved. So Imperial Fist Yellow, appropriately named the new contrast paint, goes on super smooth, super, none of that congealing stuff. Unless you're really, really dunking it, it goes on perfect. The only downside is there's no actual contrast because it doesn't sink into the surfaces. It doesn't create that usual contrast paint effect because it's so dense, it's so opaque. So in order to get around that, all you got to do is shade it with Gorgrunta brown. It's like that sienna rust color of contrast paints. So thin that, use that as your shade color. That gives you this awesome construction orange. And I honestly will go over the whole miniature. So I do the Imperial Fist Yellow, coat it in the shade coat of Gorgrunta brown, or Gorgrunta fur, I think is what it's called, and you get a construction color. Then I'll go over and stipple the hell and dry brush the hell out of it. So your highlights are now white again, but you still got the construction yellow in the recesses. Then go over that again, just on that parts that you've lightened, with another thin coat of Imperial Fist Yellow to get that bold yellow back up. So you can see it on that the minigun guy's leg there. The inside of that leg is orange. Right, everything else bright yellow. And that was all just glazing, dry brushing, and another glaze.
What color are you using to stipple, Darcy? What color?
Just white. So that when you put the yellow, you can do ivory too. Either one. It'll just give you a more saturated yellow. But just so your second layer is sitting on top of something bright, basically.
And so you get the actual pigment that kind of matches what you're originally going for.
Correct.
On top of it. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So, and I did go and edge highlight some of that. You can go back and edge highlight by mixing just a little bit of white into the Imperial Fist Yellow because it's so dense, even though it's a contrast paint. Once you mix it with a regular acrylic, it just becomes a thinned regular acrylic, basically like a layer paint. So I did go through, lighten it, and do edge highlighting with that.
Okay, I can see it now. You stippled and dry brushed with the white, and then just covered the whole thing again in the yellow. Because that yellow went over the Gorgrunta fur as well, right? And
so you do your yellow, then you do your Gorgrunta, and that makes it the construction yellow. Then you do the stippling of the white, then the second re-brighten it back up.
Yeah.
I can send y'all the link. It is ridiculously. It's easy. The only difficult part is just building up that white stippling, because if you don't do it enough, you're just putting yellow on a slightly orange barely lightened surface.
This is great.
Yeah, very good.
And I'm going to watch the video.
Say again.
This is great, and I'm going to watch the video.
I have a question on the tiny little white dot in the sight of the minigun.
That's gloss.
Do you use a brush or do you just use?
That was a gloss varnish. That's me cheating.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually light reflecting off that.
So that's real. Wow.
That's just why work harder than you have to.
Came alive.
Yeah,
I'm
awesome.
exceptionally lazy. I am very lazy, so I will just, if it works, it works.
Now, if you look at up here, you've got a darker kind of upper part and then like a more red orange. Here, let me see if I can zoom in.
Oh, those aren't great. Those I kind of half-assed.
I mean, they look great because I know you put the gloss over it, right? Like you can tell like, it's a little glossy. But it looks like you've got a darker color here and then like maybe a red and then you kind of put like an orange or a salmon.
So I'll actually do it in reverse since I'm working with contrast paints. You do the orange, and I'll turn my miniature upside down on my word bearers tutorial I just did. You'll see it on there. If I'm doing lenses, I turn it upside down. So I'm working with white, right, as the base coat. Yep. And then I will usually do like Eodin yellow because it's this kind of orange, like fiery yellow. Put that on there first. It'll sink. Most of it will sink towards I'm pointing at the screen like you guys can see my fingers. Will sink towards that because you're holding it upside down, right?
Yep.
Then you go in with your red. Your thin flesh tearers red is usually what I'll use. That turns that yellow to orange, and it'll sink, and again, sink towards the top. Then you go in with, I'll usually do another layer of that, like a tiny, like you're getting smaller and smaller because you don't want to overwhelm that crescent, right, at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I'll go in and put another thing of flesh tearers red, so it's a saturated red at the top. And then still upside down, put a tiny, tiny dollop of black Templar in there while the red is still wet. So that way it blends into it.
And, we're super zoomed in here, but this is like
a millimeter? A millimeter?
It's insanely small. Yeah, that's why I was like, oh my God, this is...
It's like a ball head or like a ballpoint pin head, basically, right?
Yeah, I did use a tiny brush for that, which is, again, why I use contrast paints instead of layer, like the traditional acrylics, just because that's such a small surface. It's instantly going to get chunky if you're doing 3 or 4 layers of paint of that type of body paint.
Right. That makes sense.
That's awesome.
Well, we've all learned something about lenses now.
Sorry,
clearly
that was really long.
No, clearly none of us knew how to do lenses until just now. And I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known that. I've got droids that needed good lenses. And now they're just like, it's glowing red. It'll just glow. The whole thing. I don't know.
Seriously, I almost gave up because I screwed it up a couple times. When I went to do that's what it was. I went to do the trim, that little like silver part, and I messed it up. And I was like, I might just make it glow. But yeah, I've definitely done that before where I'm just like, forget it. It's glowing. It's electronic. We know what it is.
That's great. We all want to endeavor to be that precise.
So we're getting near the end here, Darcy, but I want to ask you 2 questions, kind of our 2 parting questions for you.
Okay.
If you had a brand new person who was really interested in the hobby, like what piece of advice would you give them? That's the first question. The second question is what do you struggle with right now in painting and hobbying? So answer those in any order you choose.
I'll do the one that I know the answer to. The one I struggle with is weathering.
Okay.
And any kind of industrial surface. I love orcs. I love them so much. I love their infantry, but most of their really awesome models are all the mechanized, buggies and the big old def dreads and def rollers and stuff like that. I got into them because, one, I love orcs, but I got into them because I wanted to, I was like, all right, I'm going to get good at weathering. I'm going to get good at this crap I never, ever test. And it's going to be with the guys I love. Damn it. And I did a def dread and I kit bashed a rhino, a Space Marine rhino, into a truck. And I was happy with it. I thought it looked great. And I don't like it. I don't like doing it. It's just, I can make it work and I can make it look like, oh, that looks nice. Like that looks like a weathered, beat up vehicle, but I don't enjoy the process. So honestly, I don't know why, but that is what I want to be comfortable with, but still somehow enjoy it. So that's what I'm struggling with right now is doing weathering, but liking it. And I don't know if that's going to actually ever happen. Because my husband is all about weathering. He does scale model stuff, like World War II stuff. So I've got a guy in my house that'll just do it for me. So, so his
subcontract that out, Darcy.
I do. His honey-do list is please put weathering on these treads. Thank you. Goodbye.
And do some dishes.
I'll do the dishes. I'll vacuum. Can you please weather my death copters? Because I don't want to do that.
That's awesome.
I'll
That-
unclog the sink.
That won't happen in my marriage, but I can only imagine. I can only wish.
But the what was the other one? The
Advice
person.
to a new person getting into the hobby. Like, what would you give them?
Start small. People jump in like feet first and buy like a whole army, which I'm glad you're excited. I'm glad you're enthusiastic, but are you sure? Kind of thing. It's like marrying someone after the first date. It's like big commitment on limited information. So I would say start small. Pick what you think looks cool, because regardless of the meta, you might not even like playing. Because when I started 6th edition fantasy, I was like, oh yeah, me and my friends are gonna play. This is gonna be great, Lizardman, yay! And then I died literally every game I played and went, well, I'm just gonna paint. So I'm glad I didn't buy like a whole massive army and spend all that time doing that. So I would say pick like 2 boxes, and they don't even have to be from the same army, of what you think looks cool. And go from there. And then just as far as like actual information gathering, again, honestly, the Citadel color app I think is really helpful as far as seeing like how colors interact. Like once you know how to build a certain color and what colors you like, you can kind of go from there and flavor to taste once you know how to make those colors, which I feel like the Citadel app does a pretty good job at demonstrating in like a concise way. So that, and then find a YouTube channel you like. I feel like there's so much information out there compared to when we all started. It's crazy what you can learn in a short amount of time, just because it's just a hive mind of knowledge. So find something, a style you like, and someone you like that teaches you it. That's it.
Yeah, I think I love your last point there. Find a style you like, because I know I started looking at all sorts of videos, and the conflicting styles were giving me conflicting techniques,
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like mashing these things together in a Frankenstein thing and being like, why doesn't it look the way I want? And it was because I wasn't going for a style that I was hoping for, and I think everybody ends up developing sort of their own style.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got to kind of work on things and figure out what works for you and what you like. And, I paint my lenses this way. I paint my armor this way. I paint my other things this way. And that you sort of develop into your own style. But in the beginning, you're just trying to figure out what you like. And so pick 1 or 2 things, because there's so much information out there that you could absolutely get lost in it and end up feeling like you're not doing anything that you like. So, it's very good. But I will recommend to all of our listeners to absolutely check out Darcy Bono. Follow her on Instagram. Follow her on
and on Instagram, on she is
YouTube.
Darcy_Bono_creations. And how do we find you on YouTube?
If you look Darcy Bono Creations on there, I should come up. Luckily, there's not too many Darcys out there, so it's the searchability is okay.
We'll put you in the links down below, so if our listeners want to click on that, like that, we can get you there.
Yeah, I would say it's /Darcy Bono Creations, but now I'm second guessing my underscores on my YouTube channel.
Your YouTube is youtube.com/@Darcy Bono Creations.
All one word.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And
now I know.
It's awesome. It's awesome. We love it. We love you. We love your work.
Oh, thank you.
You're getting lots of likes and we're clicking all the time. I know you get thousands of likes. Just know that we're huge fans, and we're hitting those little hearts all the time on your work.
Thank you.
It's just really phenomenal.
I appreciate it.
We need to get you after the Nova Open.
I know.
So,
maybe. Hey, we might be in DC next year, because this is a temp assignment. We're only here a year, and we'll be pretty dang close to DC, and his career field, like what he does, will probably end up that way. So it's a pretty good chance.
We live in the area where a lot of people who work in the DC and your husband's career field live.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
If you need any help finding a place,
we have a growing Warcry community.
Yes,
we do.
God, I haven't played since we moved. I can't wait.
Yeah. So very good. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Darcy. We loved having you.
Thanks for having me.
We love oogling over your photos that you do. And I mean, maybe another topic of conversation another time is, how do you take such gosh darn good photos?
Oh my gosh.
Like
I was going to ask that. Okay. All right. Well,
another topic for another day.
Now we got a reason to bring her back.
Exactly. So thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody, like we
thanks.
said, you can check out her links below in the comment section and give her a like, give her a follow. And as for everybody else, we'll see you all at the tables. Have a great night, everyone.
See ya.
Later.